humans are the new endpoint. Think about everything that we do. You and I are posting content online, we're making ourselves vulnerable, we're telling our story. You scale that out to 8.6 billion people, that is so much data on the internet, and we carry devices, we wear these devices, we're just producing data on every second of the day.
My guest today started building bots in high school that bypassed anti-bot systems at major retailers. Meet Mohammad Eshan, co-founder and CEO of GhostEye, a Y Combinator-backed company building AI-powered social engineering infrastructure that attacks your organization before the real threat actors do. Right now, someone could look up your employees online, piece together the digital footprint, and use it to craft a personalized phishing email, or a scam call, or a deepfake, and be inside your systems before launch. GhostEye does that first. In this episode, we're getting into what it actually means to treat human risk as a security problem and not a training problem. Why AI has fundamentally changed what social engineering looks like at scale, and what security leaders need to understand.
You totally use like a Claude cowork in the morning and you're like, hey, summarize my emails. It's gonna say, hey, you have an email from Microsoft. And what happens when your agent gets phished because you were too lazy or you didn't want to put the thought into actually looking at the email yourself? I don't think the defenders are really ready.
Eshan, welcome to AI Cyber Podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So what have you been up to?
I have been building GhostEye for the last 9 months.
Okay.
We launched in early February, and we are creating vulnerability management for people. And what that entails is we're applying the same vulnerability management lifecycle that we've used for computers to people. And we're living on the thesis that humans are the new endpoint.
Wow. That's a great way to start the conversation, because I've never heard it framed that way, vulnerability management for people and that humans are the new endpoints. Okay, we'll go deeper into that conversation and unpack all of those arguments you're making. But why should someone who has just bumped into this conversation, say on YouTube or on Spotify, why should they pause whatever they're doing and listen to us chat?
Why you should listen to us is probably because we're shifting the paradigm in what security training and awareness was 20 years ago and what it is now that attackers are so enabled by AI agents. And, we can see the frequency of attacks just going insane right now. So we need somebody, and that somebody's us, to say, hey, this is the new way.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's imagine that I'm a CISO. I want you to explain GhostEye to me. Let's also picture that I'm a CISO who already has like an external network attack surface management tool, right? What does it show them that they are not currently seeing?
Yeah, so we have a ton of context on the threat actors that are active at the moment. So you see Scattered Spider and Shiny Hunters, who've been very notorious recently. We are monitoring live threat intelligence, and we're getting all of this data and understanding the context behind what kinds of attacks they've done and leveraging context about your business. Like, hey, this is GhostEye.ai. There is less than 10 employees here. They're based in New York, and all this other data. And we will run OSINT, so open source intelligence, on the people that work at the company, because that's what any other bad guy would do, right? So it's really saying, here is threat intelligence, here is information about the people, and here's information about the company. We combine all three of those to generate hyper-personalized attacks. And when somebody hits you up and says, hey, confidence, I need access to this, or I want to, come film a podcast with you. Can you send me a link to this? It's generating the urgency through somebody and you're more likely to fall for something like that. So we're taking the attacker's approach, and yeah.
Okay, so I like that you've mentioned a couple of things. I'm going to go deeper into the OSINT side of things that you've signposted. But I want you to talk us through the methodology even deeper.
what approach you have taken to solve a problem, what wasn't working before, and how your own methodology is most likely positioned to solve that problem and change what wasn't working before to work better for us. And then we can go on later on to talk about your argument of people being an endpoint.
You know, we are first to know when a threat actor is talking about attack. So we are going to go ahead and use all of the context we have against the business and the people. So we scrape your social profiles, we scrape your professional profiles, everything that is on the internet about you as a person. And then think about LinkedIn, right? You have your first, second, third degree. That's kind of how we build the graph. So this is the person that is most likely to get to confidence, right? We will build all of that and we will use it in our tests. And we're kind of saying, hey, look, instead of punishing people for clicking a template, so you have an email, then you get trained for 45 minutes. And then, okay, we have AI native vendors. AI native vendors are not solving the problem. They're just in it for the money here because anybody can create a voice phishing feature and say, hey, you need to do training on voice phishing now, or you need to take this deep fake training, right? Like, it's fundamentally not going to help the person. And, you know, I think that's where the industry is wrong. And the way we're doing it is a very militaristic method. We are in the business of conditioning the human mind. And we are kind of applying cognitive science and psychology to our approach.
Okay.
Because the US Army conditions their soldiers to be the best. Why don't we treat our employees the same?
Okay. So how does that conditioning happen?
Let's say you fall for a voice phishing attack.
Okay.
We're going to test different iterations until you are able to spot and identify that it is a voice phishing attack,
Okay.
or until you stop picking up the phone, which is
Which
probably better.
No.
I mean,
Business has to happen.
I'll tell you, I don't pick up the phone at all.
How are you gonna get the investors in?
Oh, that's rough.
But yeah, I really like your argument around people being the new endpoint. Why so?
I mean, think about everything that we do. You and I are posting content online. We're making ourselves vulnerable. We're telling our story. And, you know, you scale that out to, I don't know, 8.6 billion people. That is so much data on the internet. And we carry devices, we wear these devices, and we're just producing data on every second of the day. So when a threat actor is looking at you and is trying to figure out how to get to your company through you, you are the endpoint that needs to be secured because that's what they're looking at.
Yes. And you spoke a lot about OSINT-based reconnaissance, which is basically what attackers do before they attack.
Absolutely.
My question now is, how does Ghost Eye replicate attacker methodology specifically? And where does that replication actually fall short?
I'll give some background on this before I get into it. I have been breaking into things since I was in 8th grade.
Fantastic. I like that background.
Yeah, so like I did some red team work at BlackRock. I did some offensive cyber operations at MITRE and a bunch of other crazy things. But we're simulating exactly how an offensive operator would. So when you have a consultant come in and test your help desk, right, we're doing it the same exact way. We're just scaling it with agents.
When you said help desk, you had me there. Because we know what's happening there. It's been news article after news, bad news that really has to do with help desk. But that's just one place where attackers will come through. But I like that you mentioned that. I also wanted to ask about attack surface management as a category. And I see it as something that's crowded, really. What is the honest differentiator that you have? And what is the marketing claim you've made that you'd qualify in this conversation as unique to you?
I would say we're not really in the attack surface management category. I think we mistakenly get grouped into security awareness training very frequently. But I think what we're trying to do is, shift the entire category per se, because I'm saying that everybody has done it the wrong way for the past 20 plus years, even the AI native vendors. And I'm saying this is the right way to approach it. CISOs know what vulnerability management is. So you take this same life cycle, you apply it to people, and you say, hey, humans are endpoints. This is how we patch them. That's how we fix the problem.
Okay, so what would you call that category?
Vulnerability management for people.
Okay. Vulnerability management for people. That could be a category for all I care. We know that exposure management, exposure management wasn't a thing 10 years ago. Yeah. And now we could have this as a new category, actually. So I also want to ask around sort of like external visibility. External visibility is only useful if a team can literally act on it, right? What does the average time to action look like? Findings from Ghost Eye, and what slows it down?
I think it depends on how fast the operator responds.
Okay.
Because we're monitoring feeds 24/7 and we generate these hyper contextualized attacks. So when everything is done and generated and ready, it's purely dependent on the human in the loop who is administering the tool to test and deploy.
Okay. So walk me through the adoption cycle. I'm a client. I have bought Ghost Eye, some seats. You sell seats, right?
Yep.
Good. I've bought some seats for all of my employees. And what happens after that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So after you get onboarded, you'll probably sync your Active Directory or your Google Workspace. Then we're going to do a OSINT scan on everybody at the company. We're going to see what your external attack surface looks like or what your exposure is. And in parallel, we're going to do some searches on the company. And the most recent threat actor attacks that have been going on, that'll be your first scenario. So that'll take a few minutes. It'll get deployed. And, you'll start seeing results probably within a day, 2 days, depending on how large the organization is.
So what are results in that context?
You'll start seeing how many people are falling for attacks that are very specific to them.
Okay. So you basically begin to deploy attacks autonomously based on that context you have of everybody in the organization and the context you have of the organization.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. So what would that look like? That could look like calls, phishing calls. What forms do they take?
I think it's very dependent on the person.
Okay.
Because, you could totally pick up the phone and answer whenever, somebody calls you, but I only respond to text.
Okay.
So it's going to be like, okay, how do I get to this person through the vector that they are most comfortable with?
Okay. What types of exposure does Ghost Eye surface that organizations consistently do not know they had in your experience? I'm assuming you've had a couple of clients so far.
Yeah. When there is news around the company and, there's something going on like a big fundraise or, like a lawsuit or something that's happening, a lot of the employees at the company are completely oblivious sometimes to, stuff that might happen from the external side. So it's like, hey, I'm going to call you and ask you for bank documents during a fundraise. That's going to totally screw you because you might think it's an investor.
Mm-hmm.
So, just using the context with the attacks and showing you hey, this is real, because I'm super tired of people using email templates and all these stupid things. It's come on, guys.
It's 2026. But that also makes me believe, from what you've just narrated to me, that this sort of testing and patching of the humans happens on a continuous basis when there's new reason to sort of check the humans' cyber resilience and ability to pick up on scams that come towards them. There's a continuous testing of that. There's some rigor that continues to happen within the organizations, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I also know that AI is changing how organizations basically build and expose services, right?
Yep.
How is that changing external attack surfaces, and how does your tooling really just keep up pace with that change?
How do we keep up pace?
Yes. So, for example, agents were not a thing last year, early last year, right? The agentic ecosystem really just sprung towards end of last year, yeah. So I'm asking how you keep up pace with all of those changes that are happening in the AI ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think we are very agent first, and our entire platform is just agents. And I think as organizations continue to deploy agents within themselves, we are going to need to get in there and actually, make their agents aware of, hey, this is not m1microsoft.com with the fake Microsoft body in the email. This is actually a phishing email, because you totally use like a Claude cowork in the morning and you're like, hey, summarize my emails. It's going to say, hey, you have an email from Microsoft. And what happens when your agent gets phished because you were too lazy or you didn't want to put the thought into actually looking at the email yourself?
Food for thought. What happens when your agent gets phished? That's a very interesting question. I'm still digesting that. But let's talk about false positives, right? False positives are a real cost in this category that you're doing work in. What is your false positive rate, and how do you manage a noise problem for a security team that is already overloaded?
I think we have some really good data, but I think really very early on when we were building the platform, our false positive rate on like OSINT was kind of bad. It was pretty early into building it. So we would get like a John Doe from company A instead of company C, which was our customer. So, over time, we've gotten it near perfect. But in terms of our engagements, I think we've been pretty good. Like the numbers are pretty high.
Okay. The numbers of false positives?
No.
Okay, please fix that.
Not the false positives. Sorry.
Yeah.
Success rate.
Success rate very high. That's fantastic. Okay, so I want to also follow that up with, where does OSINT based attack surface visibility really just end? Where does it not see, and what should a team use to cover those gaps?
Having internal organizational context into how the day-to-day works, what the departments look like. I can map out what your departments look like. That's not a problem. But having more visibility into the day-to-day, what projects are going on, all that extra stuff. Because if I can use that in pretexts, you're going to be so much more resilient than if you're not.
Exactly. I also want to follow that up with asking that, threat actors are increasingly using AI to conduct OSINT, right? And they're doing this at scale.
Yeah.
So are you keeping pace with that capability, or is there a gap? And I also want to ask if, in your opinion, do you think as defenders, are we ahead of the curve in our use of AI?
I think we're a lot of defenders are extremely skeptical because we're in 2026 and there is a lot of SaaS fatigue. So, defenders are like, okay, what do I use? Do I build this in-house? Do I buy this solution that has a bunch of logos? I'm going to get into some of the cognitive stuff, but if you see a bunch of logos on a website, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to trust them because they do, right?
Yes.
So when you look at a solution, it's going to be like okay, they're a little new and they have this thing, but yeah, I think that's kind of like step one. But I don't think the defenders are really ready. And I think the attackers are going to definitely stay ahead because, signal to noise ratio is just terrible right now.
I agree with you. There's just a lot of talk around AI, and a lot of it is just noise, very little signal in it. But I want to follow that up with asking a question around attack surface findings. I know that, generally speaking, a lot of attack surface findings are things the team already knew were there, but accepted as a tolerated risk in some cases. How does Ghost Eye handle the difference between unknown exposure and a known accepted risk?
A known accepted risk, like I'll say an example. Everybody knows their help desk is vulnerable because most people are contracting it out to India and the Philippines, right? So, we're going to go through, we're going to test it, and we're going to give you the same results and consultants would have given you for like $85,000. We don't really kind of split things up. We just show you on a more constant basis to kind of bug you and remind you it's there.
Okay, so I've also heard people, or rather, I've had conversations where solutions are hybrid. So maybe AI driven or AI native, and some part of solutions don't necessarily need AI to run. Is Ghost Eye fully AI native, fully AI driven?
I would say the threat intelligence, it's AI native. The voice phishing, the deep fakes, all of that stuff, it's extremely AI driven. But there are parts that aren't, right? Like you need to say, hey, I need a report for this thing. You're going to have to go click a couple of buttons. It'll generate. But we're going to move that over to chat pretty soon.
I'm asking because if it doesn't need to be AI driven, it doesn't have to be.
I think making it as
Exactly.
deterministic as possible
Exactly.
is the best way to succeed, because if you don't really need it, nice. But if you
If you
do,
do,
you will have to also account for hallucination and a bunch of other things. So, just making it as easy as possible for an operator at the end of the day, because our tool exists to make the lives of operators 1,000x easier, right?
I agree with that. I agree with that so much. So let's say I'm a CISO again, and I have a limited budget, and,
You're a
and I have
two-time CISO?
yes.
Shit, buy my product.
Yeah, I would. But let's say I have a limited budget and I have to choose between expanding internal detection coverage or improving external visibility. Which investment makes the most sense and why?
Whatever's actionable.
Okay, tell me more.
Having visibility doesn't always mean you're going to take action, because I think a lot of the CISOs I talk to don't want to know that it's there. They're a little afraid of, it's like, okay, now I have to go deal with this because I have the data on it. So, whatever you can action on and whatever makes it easier for you to action on.
Okay. What is a finding that Ghost Eye has surfaced that genuinely surprised the customer and would I say changed how they approach the part of their program, the security program here?
Yeah, I think the ability to just have so much context within a context graph and leverage that in extremely, relevant scenarios is kind of next generation. And when you manage people like they're in an endpoint, I think that's when we're looking at the frontier, right? Because I don't think anybody else is doing that right now. And I don't think anybody's ever really thought outside the box since Nova 4 came into inception 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, but the use of the phrase context graph, is it what I think it is? The context graph I know is basically having an agent sort of like show end-to-end decisioning process. Is that what you mean?
Basically saying, hey, this is the amount of context I have on confidence. So this is her role at work. This is what her social profiles look like. This is her tone of talking. This is how people typically respond to her. This is everybody in her network. That's the context graph on the person.
Okay. So the word context graph is very specific to Ghost Eye.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a Fortune 500 company, CIO. We don't have a CISO. My role covers security and also has information management bundled into it. Tell me something that'll make sure that I see the need for Ghost Eye. And while you're having that thought, also think about a startup has people building solutions but doesn't have a security team and needs to be able to patch its people that are vulnerable.
I would say for the enterprise, it is going to make your people 1,000,000,000,000 times more productive, because it reduces the cognitive load that goes into, hey, go make this campaign, go select the scenario. Everything just gets dumped into one. All you have to be is the human in the loop approving it. So you spend less time using our platform than you do everybody else. And it's made like that by design.
Okay.
So the context here is there's a lot of cognitive load that us as security practitioners have to go through. 90% of us are overloaded 24/7 because we have so much to do. And one of our goals is just to make it as easy as possible to go through your day. Because I know a lot of the people operating tools like ours are, overworked, and, they spend a lot of time doing other parts of the job. So it's to really serve our operators.
Okay. Thank you so much. And what would Ghost Eye look like in the next 1 year?
We're going to start securing and making agents very aware of what phishing is and how to not get manipulated.
I was going to end the conversation there, but you just said something that has opened a Pandora's box to me because you had said something earlier on, and I want to go deeper on that bit.
Sure.
Considering that agents are beginning to talk to themselves, there are protocols in place for that. Agents will begin to buy from agents very soon. There's already agent commerce. There is also the other part of things where agents are consuming information from the internet, from devices, and taking actions on our behalf. So an agent could actually take an action on an email that compromises identity. But agent doesn't even have the training or the context of what could be malicious that humans have. So that agent social engineering hardening side of things is really interesting to me. So I wanted to talk more about that.
I think it goes beyond the understanding that we have of it today. I mean, everybody just throws like the term prompt injection around, but I think there's going to be a lot of signaturing between, hey, this is what the human asked for, and this is how the agent is going to execute. And, the human endpoint is going to have endpoints themselves, like mini endpoints that we're just dispersing. Those are the agents that make them more productive. And we're kind of going to have to use all of the context on the person to understand how they might prompt the agents to behave. And, how deep can we go in terms of manipulatability, right? Can somebody call me or put something on my calendar and completely, make me join a deepfake video or like go through something?
Yes.
The agent needs to be able to sit there and say, okay, this might not be real because there's so much context.
Do you think that there's research on that going on? Because I really do see a possibility of that happening very soon.
I mean, I'm going to try publishing something very
Please
soon.
do. Because I was reading about the recent one around the pai poisoning and how that happened and how it was just a dependable that was brought along on the journey, not even the main thing, the main package downloaded, right? And then it's something that could have infected millions of people. So I'm really thinking around that. So please, we want to see research from you around how agents to agents social engineering could happen, and hardening of agents could also happen from the context of patching their awareness around social engineering, for example. That would be good research. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a long time of work in progress and there's going to be a lot of data required. But I mean, that's why we are built by attackers, right? We can attack with the agents and we can figure out the weak points and we can start patching it. So that's really how we secure the human endpoint, right? We're end to end, and the workforce is going to get enhanced by agents with, the human operators. We want to secure the human and their agents.
And because the workforce will also become half agents, half human at some point.
That
and
has
even
happened.
more agents than humans in some enterprises. So yes, I really agree with that line of thought. So thank you so much, Eshan, for your
Absolutely.
time
Thank
and
you.
for chatting with us and sharing these interesting new ideas you've brought into the world, humans as endpoints. What else did you say again? Patching humans. I've heard patching humans before, but humans as endpoints is totally new to me. So Ghosta is built by attackers that are trying to take vulnerability management to people and apply that same principle to people. So yeah, it was great chatting with you. I've learned a lot. I wish you all the best, and I think more organizations should come to the light of Ghost Eye.
Thank you. Yeah.